We'll be discussing the promotion of community health through sustainable agricultural practices. Welcome to the Sustainability Nugget podcast. I am Rarasu Maraibi.
And I'm Tosin Faloranjo.
On this podcast, we'll learn about sustainability by discussing various related topics while focusing on three pillars: the economy, the society, and the environment. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Sustainability Nugget podcast. Today we'll be discussing the promotion of community health through sustainable agricultural practices. And we have our guest today, Brendon Smith, who is the Marketing and Communications Director of Willy Street Co-op, to help us understand this concept. Welcome, Brendon.
Well, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Happy to have you. So can you just start off by telling us about your background and how you got to your current role?
Sure. My background is in marketing, and I've always been really interested in more really on the communication side than in the selling side. When I started celebrating my 20th year here at the co-op, and when I started the general manager is fond of telling the story about when I started. I asked if we could change the name of my role to communications instead of marketing, because I said, I don't think co-op members want to be marketed to, I think they want to be communicated with. And that's kind of how I've approached the role. Our co-op, we exist to serve co-op owners. So we're not trying to get as much money out of them as possible. We're trying to share information and opportunities with them, and hopefully they like what we have to offer. But we try to be responsive and change things if we choose wrong. So more emphasis on communication than marketing.
Okay. Can you tell us more about Co-op, Willy Street Co-op? Like what exactly they do?
Sure. So we're a food cooperative in Madison and Middleton, Wisconsin. We have about 33,000 co-op owners who join the co-op because they want access to organic, natural, locally grown or locally made and sustainable food and products. So we started 48 years ago. It was a group of people who had a buying club that they were getting some food from, and that buying club moved, so they wanted access to some products they couldn't find at grocery stores and supermarkets. So they decided to cooperate and band together and start their own co-op to have more control about where their food came from. So that's still kind of the interest that brings people to our co-op today, wanting to be involved, caring about where their food came from, who makes it, how it's made. And we do our best in sourcing those foods and products.
Okay. So I can see that it's really focused on organic, natural. So like really making sure like your food is from a sustainable source. We've really granted the fact that you're a communications director. You could be that in any industry. So why did you choose the sustainable food industry? How did your passion for sustainability come about?
Well, I didn't really know much about co-ops when I first started. My partner and I started shopping at the co-op, and I started learning more, and I realized I really liked the model. I liked the idea of people banding together and doing something bigger than they could do alone. I just liked that feel. And then my partner said, hey, there is a job opening at Willy Street Co-op, and I was working at another business doing marketing, and it wasn't really working for me. So I applied and been here ever since. And I think another factor too was there's so many stories to tell about food and who makes the food and where it's from. And so it's easy when you have a lot of things you can talk about.
Okay. So like when you say co-op, you're referring to Willy Street Co-op itself, not just any co-op, right?
Right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Yes, I'm talking about specifically Willy Street Co-op. There are lots of different kinds of co-ops, not just food co-ops. But yeah, anytime I say the co-op, I'm really referring to our co-op.
Yeah. And to make sure everybody understands, the co-op means cooperatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
So the Willy Street Co-op, where is it located? Is it across the United States? Is it outside of the United States? Where?
In Middleton, Wisconsin, in the United States. We just have 3 stores, but there are food co-ops around the world, and we are part of an association of American food co-ops, and we cooperate together and pool our resources to be able to have greater buying power and compete with some really big food companies.
So can you share more about your experience with Willy Street Co-op itself and how this organization promotes sustainability in the community?
Sure. As we talked about, we have a lot of organic and fair trade and natural and locally made and sustainable products. That's what we're really known for. We sponsor a lot of community events that share those kinds of values. We write about these issues in our monthly co-op newsletter and share stories from other community partners and share national stories about these things. We use wind and solar thermal power. We compost both front of house and back of house. So when customers come in and use our store, they can compost their food scraps. And then in our kitchen and service departments, we also compost back there. So we try to have as little food waste as possible between composting and what we call our staff free box food that's still totally fine, but we can't sell. We make available for staff, and then we also donate food to food pantries and other similar organizations. So we try to throw away almost no food.
That's awesome. Willy Street Co-op is like a grocery store, but
yes.
The fresh foods are, you make sure they're from like farmers that practice sustainable agriculture, right?
Yeah, as much as possible. We do offer some conventional produce, especially when organic produce prices can be high out of season or when there are some weather events that make them higher priced. But we really focus on local as much as we can and organic as much as we can.
Yeah, so for someone listening or watching that hasn't heard the term sustainable agriculture, how would you explain that?
Sure. So I would say one aspect is minimizing pesticides and ideally having no synthetic pesticides and trying to, that really helps with the groundwater, keeping the groundwater clean, which helps for the greater community, and herbicides as well. And I would say size of the farm. There are some very large farms, even large organic farms. And when you get to that scale, you can have a single crop, and single crops can be more vulnerable to disease because it can just sweep through the entire crop. It can harm the soil if you're just growing one crop over and over and not replenishing the soil and keeping it in good shape. And I think those are probably the biggest things that I can think of. I guess inputs to what you're adding to the soil to help it regenerate. Ideally, planting a cover crop or letting it lie fallow to give it some time to regenerate rather than trying to extract as much as you can out of the land, and then at some point it can't grow anything anymore. Those are things you want to avoid in sustainable agriculture.
So how does this help promote community health in general?
I think it helps to keep the groundwater clean. It helps keep people working on the farm healthier. When you're harvesting or putting down synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides that will drift, that will potentially harm the people who are harvesting or planting or putting that down. It can also, those health concerns can spill over into harming the community, medical costs and time away from work and factors like that. And health too. I would say organic food or biodynamically produced food from smaller farms using these practices that kind of food doesn't have the pesticide residue that conventionally grown produce may have. If it's from a local farm, it probably traveled less far, so used less packaging, less oil, and so lots of good benefits. Also, I would say growing locally, when food is grown locally and purchased locally, it keeps more money in our communities. So we really support that.
Okay, so I know like directly you guys, the produce you sell, right, are organic. That's one way. And those produce are gotten from local farmers. So that's one way like you support the community in like actually pushing this. But are there specific programs within the organization that's been created and is operating to actually help support these local farmers and even the community members?
Yeah, I think our Double Dollars program is a good example of how it can all work together. We've teamed up with Community Action Coalition for South Central Wisconsin and some local farmers markets and the city and county and some other partners. And we offer the Double Dollars program. And what that is basically anybody who uses Wisconsin Food Share or EBT at farmers markets while they're participating, or at the co-op during the times we participate, they can basically double their money up to $20 and use that at the farmers markets, most products at the farmers markets, and at the co-op on fruits and vegetables. And when those fruits and vegetables are grown by local farmers, it all kind of creates a nice circle with those local co-op buying fruits and vegetables from local farmers, customers coming in and buying those and getting extra products because of the Double Dollars program, and spending that money at the co-op so we can pay those growers more, and those growers can spend more money here in our community and keeps money circulating here in our community.
Yeah, I'd like to understand that program more. So how does it go? Like I come into the shop, I buy something and I get like a credit, or?
Yeah, we handled it kind of two different ways at the farmers market and at the co-op, Willy Street Co-op. You get a voucher. So every $5 you use, you get a $5 voucher up to $20 worth. So at our store, when you shop on a Tuesday from later October through March, will match if you say you spend $20 food share eligible products. We'll give you $20 in Double Dollars, and that can be used on any produce, canned, frozen, fresh, in our stores any day of the week. So it really helps extend what people on limited budgets can get at our stores. And usually I'm not sure how much the farmers markets make or are able to redeem, but we can usually redeem between $60,000 and $80,000 worth of Double Dollars vouchers each year. And we've heard from people who really appreciate being able to get more produce with their dollars at our stores.
Okay. So scrolling through your website, I came across like the Community Reinvestment Fund. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So each year in December and January, we put out a call for applications for grants for community programs. They need to be local programs, local to the Madison, Wisconsin area. And they can be really any variety of things. We've had community gardens we've helped fund. There's a bakery program training adults in skills that they could use and then go on and get bakery jobs at other businesses. Their prison reading program that has gotten a grant before. All kinds of great, wonderful community projects that get funding through this Community Reinvestment Fund grant. And this last year, we were able to increase the amount to $55,000 worth of grants we gave out. And I think we've given out over $550,000 in grants since we started this program.
So you say it's when do people submit?
Each year between beginning of December through the end of January, we take applications. And then in April, we have a committee made up of co-op owners and co-op board members and some staff members. They go through all the applications and evaluate them and then make the grant awards based on that.
So be that you're like the communications director, you're the one, like that's your office to really promote this practice, the sustainable agricultural practice that's done within Willy Street Co-op. So what are some of the challenges you faced in promoting sustainable agriculture, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I think one challenge is climate change. That has complicated talking about sustainable agriculture. We've had people before in the past who have said there was one year about, I think it was maybe 15 years ago, we had a lot of flooding in southwestern Wisconsin, where we get a lot of our local produce. And we had some people come in and say, we were really disappointed that there weren't more local pumpkins and squash and things like that. Can't you bring more local produce in? And we had to say, you may have heard about all the flooding that has been happening in our state. That is the local produce that we would bring in. Those stories have a real effect on our farmers and on agriculture. And so I think because it's quite easy to go in and get produce, almost any kind of produce, any time of year, I think a lot of people have had a kind of disconnect from where this is coming from, where this, even the people who really want local food can sometimes not always connect that local food is grown here. And when we have severe weather events, early frosts or flooding or drought, that affects this local produce. So I think that's one challenge. I think cost is another challenge. It can be more expensive to use non-synthetic pesticides. It can be more expensive to hand weed things or pick things by hand. It can be more expensive to do all these things to ensure that the crops are grown sustainably. So that can be tough. People can sometimes be aspirational in what they would like to support and then be surprised at the cost. So I think that's another challenge in promoting it. And I had another note here. I think another factor is, I think when you talk about farming, a lot of people have, what they think of is generally what we would call sustainable agriculture, when really it's much bigger scale. It is thousands of acres and very automated and not really what most farming is. So I think explaining that can be sometimes challenging. When we talk at Willy Street Co-op, when we talk about farming, we generally mean sustainable farming. And I think a lot of people have that picture in mind, but that's not what most farming is. And I think that can be tough to explain to people unless they're kind of tuned into sustainable agriculture and really understand what most agriculture is in the United States.
So what strategies have you implemented in order to help raise the awareness of what sustainable agriculture really is and just get the community more involved?
Yeah, I think when we can have farmers in to sample their products and talk about their products, that's great. It's tough. Farmers really don't have a lot of time for that. And that's some farmers don't really like that. They're not necessarily comfortable being in a store inside talking about their products when they could be outside growing their food and harvesting their food. But when we can do it, we like to do that. We'll have interviews and write articles about them, share photos. And we had each year in September, we celebrate Eat Local Month when about 3/4 of our produce is local. We had a nice highlight of our local farmers and they sent in pictures and could talk a little bit about themselves. And that was great to be able to do. Talking about these issues, what organic means, sustainable practices look like, sharing articles from national and regional sources as well, and kind of challenges they have going on, sharing articles about the Farm Bill. At any time the Farm Bill comes up for reauthorization, what are some things that sustainable agriculture advocates are hoping to get into the Farm Bill? What concerns do they have about what they see probably already going into the Farm Bill? And I think I always have to remind myself there are going to be a large number of people who just really that tuned in, and that's okay. we want to talk to the people who do want to know more and are really interested. And so we want to make sure we're providing resources and information for them. And we do try to have some more general information, but most people don't seem to want to know that much. They aren't going to read a full article. So whenever we can have an infographic or a kind of sidebar summarizing the article or a nice farmer photo with a quote, those are good ways to kind of provide an entry and to grab some attention. And even if they're not interested in learning more with that article, maybe we can plant the seed, to use an agricultural turn of phrase. Maybe later on they can become more tuned into that and be more interested in the future.
Can you tell us more about the Farm Bill?
Every couple of years, I think it's, I wish I really knew more. I've been doing research on it and try to get some experts to an overview of things they're concerned about or things that have been going well. But it authorizes a lot of spending. It's a lot of money for the U.S. economy. It's authorized, and a lot of interest groups are looking for some consideration. So it kind of, it's a good indication of where the government's interests lie in a variety of areas. How important is growing local agriculture to the government, whichever government it happens to be at the time that's working on the Farm Bill, and what interest groups, what lobbying groups will get extra consideration, how much is environmental protection a consideration for agriculture. I wish I knew more. I think that's an area I would like to continue to talk about and share resources about and learn more myself. But I've read some cautiously optimistic. I think each time the Farm Bill comes up for reauthorization, I read some cautiously optimistic things. I read some serious concerns about things that'll go in. But I think it's been the last 10 years or so, I've seen some things that I've been surprised at in a good way showing up in the Farm Bill. So that gives me hope. And it seems like organics and sustainable agriculture overall has a place, not always as big a place as I think we would like, but a place in the Farm Bill and in the discussion.
Yeah, so when I was asking for like challenges, you talked about how like due to flooding or drought, like you guys don't have enough produce. Also, I was wondering, like, does that even aid like the conversation? Because like these are effects of climate change, right? And going sustainable agricultural way is a way of like helping to fight climate change. So I'm just wondering if that ever comes in like your discussions or when you're raising awareness, discussing with customers and all.
Yeah, we mentioned climate change a lot, and I do think it is the negative results that we see can sometimes be a good way to start talking about it. We've found that when talking about climate change, it helps if we can provide a suggestion about something you can do, whether it's write to your representative, your state, local representative, to encourage them to support something sustainable practices to help try to counteract the effects of climate change, or something sustainable you can do yourself, because we've found that articles that are just bleak people, at the very least, they feel let reading it, and at the worst, they start blocking it out, and they don't want to read more, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. We don't want that. So we found that it really helps to offer some steps people can take to do something and ideally make a change or help make a change. But it's a good tool, unfortunately, to be able to start talking about sustainability and sustainable agriculture and climate change and how those kind of abstract things can really affect what you can buy, how the welfare of farmers. I mean, there have been farmers that were affected by COVID too. There have been farmers that have been really affected by major weather. And that means, so if that farm goes under, that has a trickle-down effect in our whole community. I mean, that's one less family buying products in our community. That's that there's not spending money in our community, and we're losing a local farm. We're already losing a lot of local farms. It would be a shame to lose more. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It is a good, an unfortunate opportunity, and we try to talk about that when we can, and even kind of regular weather things. Frost. Occasionally we'll say, you may notice the quality of produce is not what you're used to at our stores. And there was an early frost in Florida where we get most of our produce from at this time of year. And so people can kind of start to draw that connection. Oh, I heard about something about a frost, and now I'm seeing this orange and it doesn't look as good as it usually does. Okay, I get it now. I think because you can get almost anything you want at almost any time, it's harder to make that connection, and increasingly hard. Even 10 years ago, I was seeing that, and it's just more and more.
So does Willy Street Co-op have any plan of expanding into other states?
No, and in fact, we at the most, we would expand a little bit over into maybe a neighboring town at the most. But there are well over 100, I would say hundreds of food co-ops in the United States and many more around the world. And anybody, and there's a great organization. There are a number of organizations really that can help communities that are looking to start their own food co-op. There are new food co-ops starting all the time. It can take a while. It can take years and years, but each year that there are, I would say, I'm just guessing here, I would say there are at least 5 to 10 new co-ops, probably not 10, maybe around up to 5 new co-ops each year that start up in the United States. And it's just people coming together and saying, our needs aren't being served by the stores around here, where we want to unite and work together and open our own kind of food co-op. But really, I think co-ops are a great solution to a lot of things. And I know there are farmer co-ops. Speaking of sustainable agriculture, there are farmer co-ops, and that's a great way to promote sustainability, between sharing equipment, to sharing seed, to sharing resources.
My mom used to be a farmer. Like while growing up, like we had poultry, fish pond. I know she was part of a cooperative. Like I can remember that. I'm back in Nigeria, so I'm from Nigeria. So yeah, nice to see like there are other like type of, because I have memory of like even following up for some meetings. Yeah, so nice to see like cooperatives like span across like not just the farm itself, but even like the food like stores and all. So what advice do you like to conclude right now? What advice do you have for individuals or communities seeking to adopt more sustainable practices in their own lives and even organizations?
Well, I think the first one that came to mind was, so we talked a little bit about it. It tends to cost a little more for sustainable products. But, and so then it may be easy to say they cost more. Well, I can't do that. And non-sustainably made product to a sustainable product, that if everybody did that, it would have huge implications. It would change the entire food industry, and it would change a lot more than that too. It would change agriculture. It would change a lot of things. So it definitely doesn't have to be I can't switch everything I buy to being sustainable. Just one or two things. That's really make a big change. I would say also writing to companies who harvest things. Write to them, encourage them to use sustainable packaging, to source ingredients responsibly, to have responsible food production practices. And when I mentioned switching from something non-sustainably made to something sustainably made, those companies that get switched away from will have a big incentive to change to being more sustainable themselves. So that makes a big difference. And then I would say also reduce food waste where you can, compost if you can grow any of your own food, even herbs on the windowsill. That's great. Find more ways you can use more of the food that you buy, putting vegetable scraps in a pot, making stock, for example, or bones from meat if you eat meat. And there's a lot of our food in this country that goes to waste. So reducing the amount that gets thrown away, that will keep us more sustainable as well. And I guess also just share stories, share success stories of sustainability. If you see something that works, share it with another community, share it with another person. And I think it's not going to happen, change isn't going to happen by doing big things, because it's really tough for people to change their habits. It'll change from everybody doing a small thing.
Yeah, just little by little. Yeah. So thank you very much, Brendon, for sharing your insights on sustainable agriculture and its role in promoting community health. So I'll be leaving your details down in the description, and also link to some programs you talked about, like the Double Dollar program and even the Community Reinvestment Fund, in case you're in that area and you have an idea. Willy Street Co-op funds bright ideas. And thank you all for watching till the end, and I'll see you guys on our next episode. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Sustainability Nuggets podcast. I am Rarsu Maribi.
And I am Tosin Folorunsho. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a rating and review on wherever you listen to your podcast.
You can also show your support by signing up for a small donation to help sustain future episodes. You can find all relevant links in the description. See you in our next episode.